enough time has passed. Kagurabachi deserves to be talked about way more than it does. Because it truly can and is on its way to be one of Shonen Jump's biggest hits and its next major flagship series. I know it's a big claim to say at the very beginning of a video, but hear me out for this entire video basically. But this series is something that I see a lot of potential in, and many have gravitated towards post the big memes of 2023 when it came to Kagurabachi. And with the manga being 2 years old at the point of me recording this video, as we basically just passed the 2-year anniversary of Kagurabachi, I think it's high time that I make a video talking about Kagurabachi, why it's currently on its way to being one of the best and most recognizable series in Jump, if it's not already, due to how much Shonen Jump is really starting to push Kagurabachi, especially over the last year, but why you should take some time out of your day and read Kagurabachi. But before we jump into this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, I have a podcast called Shonen Pulse over on the Pano Focus YouTube channel, where me, Nox, Yatogami, and Papa Trophy talk about 9 manga from 3 different magazines, Kagurabachi very much included. Our discussions on that series are just absolutely fun, and I think you guys would really get a kick out of the discussions on there. Link to that channel in the description down below. And if you want to see even more of me, go and check out my second channel called GW Comics, where I talk about comic books. Right now, I'm very DC focused, especially more recently, but I'm branching out. Link to that channel is in the description down below. I'm nearing 1,000 subscribers on that as well, so it'll be very much appreciated if you guys go and give it a subscribe if you have the time. But let's jump right into why Kagurabachi is going to be, if it isn't already, the biggest hit in weekly Shonen Jump. So I think if you were a part of the AniTube, MangaTube, or TikTok section of the anime manga community, you probably heard of the Kagurabachi memes. Stuff like, my favorite character is Kagurabachi, my favorite series is Kagurabachi. Enough time has passed, like I opened up the video saying that Kagurabachi is one of the best series ever created, or better than One Piece, all that stuff. And the memes were hilarious. And those essentially originated from the fact that we were getting a brand new manga in Weekly Shonen Jump that, even though the artwork did seem kind of cool, it seemed like it would be a standard edgy series with how some of the leaks of the plot synopsis seemed like it was going to be a standard revenge series, and so some people online just decided to start making memes about it, saying that's going to be the next big thing, seeing how it's better than what's currently come beforehand, to the point where Kagurabachi was basically inescapable from the internet for a good couple of months, especially after the manga began. But it's when the manga began that some people who either got tricked by the memes somehow into believing that Kagurabachi was being hyped up because it probably is going to be something that's great, or people that were just memeing the series and had no expectations for it were surprised when the series first came out. Now, Kagurabachi, in its baseline, seems relatively, well, generic to some people. Kagurabachi is essentially a revenge story of a young man who witnessed his father's killing and is out on a revenge quest to find the ones responsible and retrieve what was stolen from his father. Take that, the all-black coat with a katana with some reds and blood for the cover image, and the first chapter being relatively bloody and gory for the most part, especially with a line that is directly translated that I wake up every day with fresh revenge in my veins and all that stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this is going to be some edgy shit, and it probably gets axed within the first 6 months if I'm being generous. But no. Despite this series opening up to be something that's going to be like a more or less somewhat generic revenge quest with cool powers and artwork that I'll get into in a minute that has improved over the course of the series, Kagurabachi has quickly, and I mean quickly, went from something that seemed relatively uninteresting with really cool looking artwork and fights to something that's a lot more philosophical and deeper than many first thought from the meme culture of it, which not only contributed to more people getting their eyes on Kagurabachi, but also painted a bizarre impression of the series before it even came in. Because due to the massive amount of eyes on Kagurabachi. Many were kind of expecting it to be bad, being something that's going to be axed within the first couple of chapters, or people getting super hyped that people are talking about this new manga and thinking, oh, this will be something great, only to be relatively let down through the high expectations given if you were taken in by the meme culture of this entire manga. But by the time we got to its first real arc with the introduction of the character of Char, to see more to the layers of our main character, Chihiro Rokuhiro, from being someone that's just out for revenge and out to get back his father's enchanted blades, to someone with very strong morals and ideals tied to not just his father, but his own sense of morality and honor. And it is fascinating, and with the first antagonist of the series, Sojo, who many fans absolutely frickin' love, we see the care and just the moment that the mangaka, Takuro Hokazono, locked in to this series and showed us just what he is capable of for this manga. Now, I went in brief generalizations and stuff like that, but let me just give you a real synopsis of what the story is about, as well as diving a bit more into the artwork and stuff, because that's what you guys clicked on this video for. So, Kagurabachi's real story, away from the memes, it is a revenge quest, for the most part. Chihiro Rokuhiro is a blacksmith's son, who his father was a famous blacksmith who forged these 5 enchanted blades that were wielded by master swordsmen in a great war from many years ago. And once the war was over, he was holding on to him. And once he had his son Chihiro, he ended up wanting to become a blacksmith like his father. But over the years of having to live in relative isolation, with the only real connection to the outside world being his father's friend Shiba, Chihiro had his whole world taken away from him out of nowhere. When these powerful sorcerers, yes, there are sorcerers in the series, people that can use magic, we'll get into that in a second, showed up and found his father and murdered him in front of him, as well as stealing the enchanted blades that his father created for the country, that saved that essentially ended this great massive war. And that is the spark for this entire series. Over the years, Chihiro trained in the ways of the sword, especially under his father's friend and now accomplice, essentially, and partner, Shiba. And through that, our main quest is known. Chihiro wants to find this group of antagonists, this group of sorcerers that are known as the Hishaku, who killed his father and stole these blades, so that he can return them to where they were, so that they aren't misused by others, because these enchanted blades are magical. These have a contract. When someone essentially grabs a sword and forges a contract with the sword, it bonds with them, and each sword has its own distinct supernatural ability. And each arc, so far, at least early on, is focused around retrieving these swords. Pretty basic plot structure. But what ends up keeping you invested is Chihiro's change in mindset and how he deals with these different situations, because it starts out with him taking out some random mobsters who were sorcerers that just caused a hell of a lot of trouble and were potentially connected to the Hishaku. But it evolves further into getting involved with the Kabunabi, who are the government-oriented sorcerer group that are in charge of protecting the sword bearers, the people that once wielded the enchanted blades, so that they won't be killed by assassins, and the enchanted blades aren't, well, having their contracts broken. Because once a sword bearer dies, the contract on the blade is broken and anybody can use the sword next. And the blades can only be contracted and bonded to one person, to one sword bearer at a time. But the thing that's interesting about the swords is that if you're a sorcerer, the way it works, you cannot use any sorcery abilities once you get into this contract with the blade, as it kind of blocks off your way of using sorcery, as the blade becomes your main source of power. And my god, are each of these swords incredibly broken, and we don't even know what all of them can do. We've only seen 3 of them. But you're probably wondering how Chihiro can do this. Yeah, he knows how to fight with a sword, but if each of these swords and have these specific magical abilities, and he's finding an organization of people that use, like, sorcery, how is he going to be able to do anything about it? Well, the Hishaku didn't realize that over the years, Rokuhiro, Chihiro's father, crafted a 6th enchanted blade called N10, and that was hidden away from the other enchanted blades that only Chihiro know about. And so he's been using this blade to fight. He's learned his swordsmanship, and he's using each of the different utilizations of his enchanted blade, which has 3 main abilities, which Chihiro uses in very creative ways and discovers new ways of utilizing his sword's abilities through each and every fight. And that's kind of how the plot structure goes. Chihiro gets a lead on the swords and the Hishaku. He goes, he fights someone, potentially recovers a blade, or we end up seeing that it leads to something else further down the road. I don't want to give real spoilers for the plot of this manga, because my god, has the plot evolved so quickly from the opening chapters to the main arc with Sojo, who, the baseline I will give you, has conflicting ideals and viewpoints of Chihiro's father and the way he created these blades and the reason for these blades' existence, and is a direct conflict to Chihiro's ideology and sense of morality and how he views his father and the blades that he created. It is a conflict of interest and ideologies with the first arc of the manga, and it only gets better from here with introductions to new characters and other aspects of this bizarre world of sorcerers and magic blades, essentially. With the locations of the sword bearers and the possession of these enchanted blades being directly tied to the security of an entire nation, with this entire organization being tasked with protecting and tracking down these swords before they get into the wrong hands, as they could shatter their very society. But there's also conspiracies afoot as well, and mysteries. How did the Hishaku find Chihiro's father if he's been isolated for many years? Similar to, like, this is minor spoilers, the sword bearers were relatively isolated and hidden away in specific fortresses since the war ended. How did this group of rogue, essentially evil sorcerers, well, find his location to steal these blades? How are they going to unlock these blades? Are they going to be able to find all the sword bearers to break their contract so that their members can potentially use them? We also have to know what their real reason and motivations are for trying to get these enchanted blades and killing the sword bearers. Is there more to their goals than what they lead on in the series, even up until this point? There is a lot to consider, and with the different characters we get introduced to quickly becoming fan favorites over the course of the series, and even within their first introductions, Hokuzono knows how to make, well, fun and interesting characters, and just badass characters that know how to aura farm, while also having fun personalities and backstories with unique fighting styles. Which leads me into the artwork, paneling, and presentation of Kagurabachi. Because, oh my lord, if people aren't talking about Kagurabachi for the story and characters, my god, are they talking about the series as a whole, with how Hokuzono knows the art of hype, and how his artwork really screams just how passionate he is about this series, and knows what he's doing, and just flexes what he can do. Throughout this manga, Hokuzono does everything he possibly can to give us unique perspective shifts, wide-scaling shots, or even just full-on spreads of characters standing or clashing their blades in a very cinematic way, with a sense of depth and detail that you believe that this is probably a still right out of either a live-action or an animated project. Hokuzono loves action movies. He has made that very clear in many comment posts and just interviews in general. And he puts that passion into his manga. And with how not only we see the cinematic feel of this manga with not just the action scenes and artwork, but he panels it in such a way for many fights to feel engaging, as if it is almost moving as you are going from panel to panel, following the action sequences, to the point where you can feel the motion. You can sense that sense of, well, movement from these characters. And that's really hard to do in a, well, single image format like a manga or a comic, because utilizing and presenting motion with impact is something that is difficult for many to do without a lot of practice. And while it was okay at the very beginning of the manga, by the time we get to roughly chapter 12 or so, when we get to the introduction of Sojo, and when he fights Chihiro, from that point onward, Hokuzono just locks in and just is like, yeah, I'm just gonna top every single action sequence I have from this point forward and make it the hypest shit I can ever really make. Sorry for the language and just a generalization of my speech, but like, that's how it feels. The artwork is incredible. The detail and shading just feels like something else. And then we get the panel work and the way the action is presented in the manga. It is definitely one of, if not the best, action manga in Weekly Shonen Jump. By far. With how Hokuzono utilizes the way he just presents the action sequences and fighting styles of each character, which is something that is also interesting. Due to the fact that outside of the fact there are literal sorcerers in the series, sword fights are the main conflict, the main way of people to fight in this manga. And Hokuzono gets the art of sword fighting down to a T. I don't think I'm very qualified to really break down how Hokuzono masters the art of sword fighting, but other YouTubers have made videos like this in the past, breaking everything down from what Hokuzono has done with this action in the manga. Heck, my pal Broken Ronin a year ago made a video about how Kagurabachi's manga has mastered the art of sword fighting, and it has only gotten better from when he uploaded that video last, because my god, has it gotten so much better. Hokuzono is an artist that just evolves and improves with every single chapter, with every arc. You can tell the progression of his craft, and that's something you can tell with many different mangaka, but in such a short span of time, it is impressive as well. It's only been 2 years since chapter 1, and if you look back at chapter 1 to now, you can tell that there is a already staunch difference with how his art is presented and drawn, and how he does his fights. And that is incredible. But despite all this action sequences, despite the hypeness of the fights and the powers and the cinematic swordplay and presentation in this manga, like I mentioned earlier, Chihiro does drive the story. The characters drive the story. You end up realizing just how incredible this series is as you see these characters take on larger-than-life challenges, impossible choices, and just overall odds that seem impossible, while also challenging their own ideals and surpassing their limits of what they can already do. And I do think Hokuzono does this in a very natural way that rewards the reader for following along with every chapter. And I can't wait to see what he does next for this series, because with the story evolving with every chapter, with it being more than just a straight up revenge story, with it challenging Chihiro's ideals and the way he views the world and interacts with others, with the other factions of this world, what their goals are for the Enchanted Blades, and the wider conspiracies of this world, and the war that took place with these Enchanted Blades, with more answers being revealed for what this is. Hokuzono has given us a story that can grow and evolve further and further. Combine that with incredible artwork and paneling and action sequences that feel like something straight out of a movie, you got an incredible new manga. And with how Shonen Jump, ever since that first year, probably because of the memes without them realizing it, they have been pushing Kagurabachi more and more. And the sales for Kagurabachi in Japan have been incredible as well, to the point where many times volumes that have been out for a year, if not months, have basically kept going in the top 50 every couple of months whenever a new volume is introduced and put on sale as well. It might not be the whole manga very often, but like past volumes, like the first 2 to 3 volumes, will break the top 50 in terms of volume sales, just like its newest manga volume as well, because Kagurabachi just speaks to a lot of people in terms of the way it knows the rule of cool, while also adding a lot of depth and nuance to these characters and the fight sequences that we see in the story. And it just makes me incredibly hyped for what happens next, especially with Shonen Jump pushing it more and more. It is essentially becoming the next face of Weekly Shonen Jump, if not Shonen in general, with how popular it gets. And once that series gets its anime adaptation, and if it is truly an adaptation that captures the majesty and beauty of the manga and its action sequences with great directorial choices that show passion behind it, it will take the anime world by storm. And people will flock to Kagurabachi no matter what. And with that, alongside, I made a video earlier as well on Ichi the Witch. It is definitely the next big face of Weekly Shonen Jump. And I do think that you should read Kagurabachi right now. But those are just my general thoughts on this series. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of this video and if you will go and check out Kagurabachi after this. Or if you've been reading Kagurabachi for a long time and just want someone to talk about it more. What did you like about the manga? What made you stick with Kagurabachi if you're reading it already? Let me know. As well as let me know in the comments what other manga you'd like me to discuss going forward as well. And if you like me talking about Kagurabachi, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have a podcast where I talk about 9 manga every single week, with Kagurabachi being one of them, with 3 other co-hosts as we dive deep into every single chapter. Link to that will be in the description down below. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more just like this. And with all that said and done, let the Rakuzaichi continue as planned. Have a nice day, everybody.